Um, Hello everyone. Good morning. Good morning. Can we all hear me? All right. Good morning. I hope we all can hear me. Welcome to class. Thank you so much for joining in, everyone. I can see we already have people on the call, including our mentors. Thank you so much for joining into the session. It's always a pleasure being in class. A big special welcome to all mentors that are currently on the call. We are in week 4 of the JIIPCC and mentorship and internship program for the energy industry, and it has been a great journey so far. And we have had such an interesting discourse starting from week 1, where we started our discussion on the fossil fuel industry, and then we moved on to power industry. We also discussed renewable energy, and today we'll be talking about energy crisis. So welcome to class, everyone. I'm sure our mentors have an interesting discourse for us in today's session. Please, I want us to be cooperative. I want us to soak in the session. That is for the mentees. Soak in the session, participate, contribute where you need to, ask questions, and let's generally have an interactive class. Also, I want to kindly ask the mentees and for those who will be presenting that you should please get ready for your presentation. Once our mentors are done with their discuss into the topics, we'll be taking your presentation and we would like for class to go as fast as possible with presentations, feedback, and towards the last segment. So, not to waste any further time, we'll be getting straight into the business of today, and that is introducing our mentors. Our first mentor, who happens to already be on call, is none other than the one and only Mr. Ayobami Dafe. If Iola, sorry, sir, I'm still getting used to pronouncing your last name. So Mr. Ayobami is a barrister, solicitor, compliance specialist, PhD researcher, and law author. Law he has experience working in law firms, oil and gas, power and maritime companies in Nigeria and the United Kingdoms, where he gained in-depth knowledge in litigation and dispute resolution, commercial and corporate practice, governance, contracting, regulatory compliance, ISO, internal audits, due diligence, and foreign investment regulation. Okay, please 1 minute. Somebody's mic is okay. Foreign investment regulation. He obtained law degrees from schools in Nigeria and England and was awarded several certificates from Ivy League schools in the United States. I will be stopping here in the reading of our mentor's profile. I would assume that we have read this. We have read this from week 1, and I'm sure we are very, very familiar with Mr. Ayobami. Thank you so much, sir, for joining. We are happy to have you in class. Our next mentor for today, also a mentor who has consistently been in our sessions starting from week 1, is Mr. Okeogene Ubehe. Mr. Okeogene is an energy infrastructure development expert with nearly decades of extensive experience spanning the upstream, midstream, and downstream oil and gas sector, as well as fossil renewable energy, including electric mobility. His career has been marked by notable achievements, beginning with his early role as a subsea engineer and ROV pilot at Ceylon Subsea Limited before advancing to leadership in infrastructure development at NG Vargas Limited. There, he led numerous offshore projects, including flow station revamps, marine logistics, marine logistics, pipeline installation, vessel operations, and maintenance. Amongst his notable contributions was the development of the multi-million dollar Mount Zion fabrication yard in Port Harcourt. Nigeria, while also securing key technical partnership with foreign companies to support energy and gas extension expansion plans. Okay, I'll be stopping here in Mr. Okeogene's profile. Like I said, I don't want us to waste so much time reading profiles. Thank you so much, Mr. Okeogene, for everything that you do for us. Thank you for always being present and availing yourself to be of great impact and knowledge in our sessions. We are always happy to have you in class. Our last mentor for today, also a mentor that is no stranger to us. He has also been very active in our sessions, and he has been with us. I think he was with us in week one. It's none other than Mr. Etsulan Audu. Mr. Etsulan, thank you so much for joining. We are happy to have you in class. Mr. Etsulan is a value-driven production engineer focused on oil and gas production operations, treatment, processing, and terminal exports facilities since 2010. He has worked in with multinationals in various capacity in building and boosting operational output and optimizing production targets. He used effective systems approach to ensure integrated deliveries of producing oil and gas facilities while adhering to strict HSE requirements and upholding asset integrity. He is very much interested in the decarbonization of the oil and gas industry and the energy transition to low carbon economy. Areas of expertise include oil and gas production operation, process operation, operation management, onshore terminal operation, offshore operations, F- FPSO, trainers, workplace assessments, control room operations, process safety management, production programming, hydrocarbon allocation and surveillance, real-time operation and operation support, integrated production system modeling, record and information management, plant maintenance, HSE management systems, energy production, operation excellence, continuous improvement, project management, business development, technical sales, manufacturing, energy, gas, petroleum, engineering management, manufacturing, supply chain management, LNG, energy policies, consulting, environmental sustainability, energy systems, and business process improvement. I'm sure we have seen that the mentors that we have in our sessions are mentors that are well-rounded and also know their onions within the lines of the energy industry. And we will not want to waste any further time. We would just like to welcome them to the session with their presentations. So I think we'll be starting with our first mentor for today, which happens to be Mr. Etulam Audu. Thank you so much, sir, for joining. I noticed you joined us the earliest. So, sir, please, we would like to get your 20 minutes presentation that you had for us in today's session. You're very much welcome, sir. Mr. Etulam, are you with us?
Yeah, I am. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir, we can hear you, sir.
Okay. Hello, I would say good morning. For where I am, it's afternoon actually. I had to just take some time within my break period to be able to be here, actually in the field currently. Well, thank you once again for having me. I hope you have the slides I sent to you.
Yes, I do.
Okay, so you can display them. I also want to commend and thank the co-mentors, Ayobumi and Koi Gana, always been around. Another interesting discussions we are going to have today. I bet you can hear me clearly.
Yes, sir, loud and clear.
Okay, that's good. I don't know if I'll be able to stay all through the program today, but because I'm on duty actually, so I just had to excuse myself briefly to join them. So, like we have had in the energy fossil fuel industry and previous engagements we've had, today we'll be looking also in terms of the energy crisis, the impact on possible solutions. First, I'll be able to go through what the energy crisis is all about, look at the impacts and history, and also some solutions that can discuss in terms of the energy crisis. Um, if we look at current happenings today, we'll discover that there are a lot of economic impacts and there are a lot of environmental impacts as well as societal issues that have been coming up in terms of energy use and accessibility, particularly in our communities and in the developing countries. In Africa and sub-Saharan Africa, we've been having issues in terms of energy accessibility and affordability. And this has to link in between the energy spectrum, where we look at both the fossil fuels and renewables, to be able to build a strong economy that is resilient to shocks. But first, so what actually is the energy crisis? Can you go to the next slide? So if you look at in terms of energy crisis, you begin to understand that the energy crisis has to do with issues that involve significant shortage in the energy supply to region, country, due to demand constraints. So if we are having a system whereby there's an increase in demand and the supply constraints are there, it's going to be impacting on how the use of energy will be utilized and also maximized. Apparently, if we take a very clear situation, you'll be able to understand that there are challenges that comes with the energy crisis. I mean, when you hear of the word crisis, you know that it's something that is unsettling. If you have a health crisis, if you are sick, if you're having headache, I mean, you cannot be calm. It means that there's something wrong. And in terms of the energy, as we know, propels and run both the economy and our lives daily. So if there's a crisis, it means that a substantial amount of the society, as well as the people, the economic system, government infrastructure is going to be unstable, both in terms of production, manufacturing, as well as resource management and utilization. So any significant shortage in energy supply to a country or region to meet growing demand is a energy crisis. So this can result into three areas: economic, social, and environmental aspects. So it will occur when available energy sources are unable to meet the needs of the population or industry or a nation. So apparently, a clear example we could be having is 2023, there's these LPG issues in terms of cooking gas in Nigeria. We're also seeing the unfolding of how the Dangote refinery came up, and as well as trying to meet up the fuel importation and also the domestic consumption of petroleum products in Nigeria. And we started seeing issues in terms of crude oil supplies with agreement with Nigerian Petroleum Corporation, thereby restricting and also impeding the flow or the supply chain for petroleum products in the market. And this would started causing issues in terms of price volatility. And also we start looking at the aspect of whereby we are having importation, as well as claiming that, I mean, the domestic refineries are not meeting up with the local demand. So these are some concepts in terms of what the energy crisis is all about. Let's go to the next slide. So I'll be a bit snappy. So in terms of the historical precepts, from a global perspective, I will start looking at where in terms of industrialization, in the late 1970s, we started having a very significant push for energy crisis globally, which this came in terms of peak oil demand production, sorry, in the developed world, the United States, as well as you have the Middle East had to come into embargo. So if we look at the energy class the first week, use the fossil fuel industry, there are historical precepts that are said concerning OPEC and how these embargoes were. So first history that very much peaked in terms of energy crisis was in the 1970s for crude oil production, oil and gas, particularly oil in developed nations like the United States and Europe, have started seeing peak production. And this has caused in terms of impediment for import demands. So OPEC and also the Middle East embargo, where you have the Saudi Arabia, and all of this came into play, whereby the OPEC countries came into agreement to say because of the war happening in the Middle East and the support of the United States, there was an embargo to curtail in terms of this is kind of a geopolitical aspect of it that came into play. So there was a cut in terms of placing an embargo of export of petroleum products, crude oil to developing nations. This impacted on the gross domestic product and also the economies of the United States and every other countries globally. Another aspect that grew from the 1970s, we hear about the oil prices rise in the 2000s. We talked about the economic crunch and all of this. So the increase in oil prices, oil demand increase and production stagnation, falling of US dollar in the 200s. This is the beginning of the millennium. So also in 2005 and 2008, we have China energy shortages, damage to power networks, and diesel and coal shortages. So this aspect came in terms of see a production for coal and as well as the demand for power. There was a rapid increase in terms of because of the manufacturing base of the China actually coming up and in terms of production, and this could not be able to meet up with the domestic demands. So this is where you have all what we call the supply side and demand side energy crisis. In 2008, we started having some Central Asia crisis.
Yeah, so for you.
Hello?
Yes, sir, we can hear you. Sorry.
Okay.
It was somebody's mic that was on.
Central Asia crisis, extreme cold weather temperatures and low water levels, leading to hydroelectric power supplies because of environmental issues, the claim for climate change and adverse weather conditions, changing the dynamics for weather conditions, whereby we're having droughts that resulted into dams not having the necessary water level to operate in Central Asia. In 2001, we know of the COVID pandemic that also led to the global energy crisis, where there's a push for lack of investment in oil and gas, and also disruption for supply chains within this period demanded a high energy prices within the globe. So we started experiencing some of these after what we call the post-pandemic recovery, and post-pandemic economic recovery led to demand. So we remember that oil prices went down and the supply chain networks, shipping in terms of oil and gas, also coal production, all of this went backward a bit. And as the economies of the world started coming back post-pandemic, we started having shortage in supply because within this period, a lot of oil and gas are also producing countries and companies slacked in terms of investment and development of most of their assets. So there is constraint on the existing supplies for energy products. In 2022, we started hearing about the EU energy crisis with relation to the Russian-Ukraine war, which impacted on gas supplies to the European Union. And because of the cry for also renewable, some of the green agenda for Europe started pushing up in terms of over the decades, and we want to focus more into renewable energy, offshore wind, solar, and in terms of that. So these affected the existing product, power projects such as gas to power generating plants. The French government came into that, French mostly is a nuclear-based power, in terms of the power generation capacity. So it started going to the idea that yes, we will stop and shut down some nuclear plants that have operated for decades. These impacted a lot in terms of when the Russia Ukraine war started, and there were cuts in terms of gas supplies to Europe, and the dynamics changed. Europe started looking at alternative gas supplies, and where we have what we call the freedom gas from the United States coming into play there. So, and there's a summer drought, there's no water for hydropower, and this also impacted the sub-Saharan Africa, part of North Africa also within this period. A critical example, which we know for sure, is the South Africa, which has been right from the 2005 has been experiencing in terms of the power generation capacity as regards population and economic growth. The national grid in South Africa is not able to meet up in terms of power generation capacity for the existing demand. So they started having what we call the blackouts. I mean, it's common with us in Nigeria. So they started doing what's called load sharing, and this has impacted in terms of their GDP. So in 2022, it's been severe cases that happened in terms of African region. Nigeria, you will know, as of last year, 2024, we had more than 10 grid collapse, which is it's not too good for us. Okay, so this is like prehistorical context. As at recently, January 2025, when the Russian gas supplies to Europe through Ukraine transit was cut off. This is one of the recent ones that happened, and Moldova and Slovakia were primarily affected, where you have the region of Transnistria being cut off of the supply of gas, where there is no power. And these things have been experienced in Europe, but I mean, you could tell that even in Nigeria now, because of all these issues of power cuts, and also if you look at it, we spend a lot of money in terms of power generation through use of diesel generators, because of the fact that if you look at the gas to power value chain, there are a lot of issues, and this results to supply side issues in terms of energy crisis. Okay, so these are prehistorical concepts in terms of a guide from 1970s up to date for the history of energy crisis globally, with some context relating to Africa. Okay, let's go to the next slide, please. So generally, I'm just being focused in terms of the whole idea of the energy crisis. So in terms of energy crisis, we have to break it down to different types of energy crisis. We have what's called the supply side energy crisis, demand side energy crisis, and the structural energy crisis. So for supply side energy crisis, you have a scenario whereby you have inadequate production or availability of energy resources such as fossil fuels and renewable energy or electricity. So this is the most prevalent in terms of the energy crisis. So if you look at the prehistorical concepts, the flow, you'll be able to understand that most of the energy crisis that we're having is driven mostly from the supply chain, supply side of it, whereby you have a shortage of gas production, inadequate supply of crude oil, you have power generation issues, power cuts that are leading to lack of electricity for the use in the population. So for supply side issue, we can look at, I've said it before, around terms of Russia, and also what factors are actually impacting or the effects in terms of the supply side. We can look at the ideas of geopolitical tensions that have contributed significantly into supply side energy crisis. And the Russia-Ukraine war is one of it. If you look at countries like Sudan and Chad, you discover that Congo that are having some of these crises in terms of regional wars, it will impact on the production of electricity, whereby power generation facilities cannot be thoroughly operated. And this impacts generally in terms of the supply side. So the call for also energy transition and also renewables, you can see the impact of how in Europe, most of the base load energy, power generation facilities are being closed out strategically. And this impacted on them when Russia cut off uh, the gas supplies to Europe. So, for instance, in Germany has been seriously impacted in terms of the reliance on gas supplies from Russia, whereby most German companies started having high energy costs. Homes started having increased energy bills because of the lack of supply of natural gas. Germany at the point even went to be able to build some floating receiving LNG facilities to be able to have temporary gas and meet up with the power generation needs. Those actually end up in terms of increased energy bills. So if we look at in terms of Nigerian context, um, you'll be able to understand that a lot of complaints and there are issues in terms of gas to power generation for gas power supplies, vandalism in terms of associated gas, crude oil pipelines that have been vandalized, restricts or it causes impediments to the supply of natural gas to power generation facilities. And also power generation facilities having to be able to have enough gas to supply to the GenCos, then from there also to the distribution and the national grid and to the distribution network. You find out that both in terms of supply side and structural side have been impacted in this value chain. So for fossil fuel and renewable energy, the call for climate change and also energy transition is actually causing some governments to be able to refocus their energy strategy and the national energy plans to be more renewable centered than fossil based or looking at a base load power supply. So if you look at Nigeria as a whole, we are much more of the gas power generated. Hydro has significance, but the dams and all of that, there are some projects that are coming up. If we don't have nuclear, places like South Africa has nuclear in terms of power supply. But in South Africa, in terms of electricity, we started having supply issues whereby you're having cuts in terms of power outages. So when we want to see in terms of the demand side energy crisis, it occurs when demand for energy exceeds the available supply. This puts stress on existing resources. Okay, if we take, for instance, Nigeria as a whole, we have crude oil significantly, and then petrol or PMS is needed for daily commutes and business operations, diesel for manufacturing and small scale businesses. And for the fact that for decades, our refineries have not been effective, we've started having issues whereby you will be having queues for filling stations, you have in terms of the pricing and all of that. So importation of a lot of PMS products into the country, this is impacting on economy, causing inflations and prices of goods and services is increasing. So as population is increasing, demand also for energy and businesses also will increase. So this is what is happening. And for instance, now the demand for oil will continue to increase about, I think, 1.5 million barrels per day this year. So also electricity, we don't have enough. We don't have enough in Nigeria per se. We don't have enough grid power to be able to service the whole nation. And this has resulted to individuals venturing into the use of generator, and also it's helping also in terms of solar power use. Renewables are gaining more in terms of this aspect because of the demand to meet up with daily needs for based on demand side energy crisis. So for instance, another example I can give is Algeria. Algeria is a gas-rich country in Africa, Northern Africa, and started developing the base. Most of the gas is being exported, and power generation stands to be limited a bit. So what happens is that now at some point, they need to, because of the aging fields of oil, I mean, their gas reserves and gas fields, and most of them are mature already in terms of their production, and they need new investment to be able to meet up with gas supplies for power generation. And because they are also export driven in terms of generating revenue through gas resources, it becomes an imbalance between domestic gas supplies as well as meeting up with the growing population. If you look at Egypt started having to a point whereby they started importing LNG. These are the kind of things that happen in terms of when there is not enough supply to meet up the growing demand. For structural energy crisis related to issues in terms of infrastructure, distribution, transmission of energy, this causes inefficiencies in the energy supply chain. From analysis, while getting to information about this, discovered that one of the impending dangers and impending issues that is facing Africa as a whole in terms of the energy crisis is the infrastructure, aged infrastructure. From the colonial times, most of the facilities that were built have gone beyond 40, 50 years. And poor maintenance in terms of these facilities has led, and also aging, has led to be able not to meet up with their requirements for production as well as meeting up with grid requirements. Particularly, this aspect is more into the electricity aspect of the business in terms of the energy crisis. So, for instance, in Nigeria, I've said it before, grid collapse. I mean, you have a national grid that has stayed for decades. It requires investments to be able to revamp and maintenance to be able to move ahead in terms of meeting up energy supplies, particularly with electricity. Okay, we can go to the next slide, please. Okay, I think I'm going to. Hello? Hello? Dennis? Dennis? Am I being heard?
Yes, sir, we can hear you, sir.
Okay, Dennis was sharing since it's cut off. Okay, let me be using from my end then. I don't know if I can share from my end since, let me see, since Dennis is. Okay, okay, this is better. Okay. Okay, I'll read it from my end. Dennis, if you come up, you can share it. So, impact of the energy crisis, we have the economic impacts. The high energy prices can lead to inflation, increased production costs, and decreased economic productivity. I've explained that previously already. The impact. Okay, David, you can share if you have this. So on the economic impact. So the impact for Nigeria, I was reading, is more than 20 billion US dollars in terms of energy crisis. For some reports I had, and countries like South Africa, the impact goes within the 2 to 5% of their gross domestic product. We can see that high energy crisis leading high energy costs, prices that will lead to high food costs and transportation costs, leading to high inflation. It's one of the impacts, economic impacts and effects of the energy crisis. So social impact, we have energy shortages can cause disruption in daily life, including power costs, reduced heating or cooling, and limited transportation. So we have a lot of issues in terms of healthcare facilities that don't have reliable power supply. And this has impacted a lot in terms of child death. You go to rural areas whereby they have no access to electricity. Candles are being used to read in the night. You have the impact that comes in terms of people relating to riots because of social instability and the hardship that people are experiencing because of high energy prices. Electricity bills are high. We have heard about the problems within the band A, band B, and band C, issues with the electricity supplies in Nigeria, where I know people in band A are already saying much about. I mean, the cost is very high. So while the political impact, energy crisis also often trigger political tensions both domestically and internationally as countries compete for limited resources. This is the clear scenario in terms of how the political landscape. President Trump are just coming to play now in terms of global energy, whereby tariffs have been put into place for imports from Canada to the US. And this actually will cause in terms of increase in prices for the US citizens. And from the supply angle of it, it will actually impact supply, I mean, imports from Canada. And also Canada is actually looking at the point whereby they are going to be exporting LNG to other countries. So this changes the dynamics and also causes some friction in terms of political relationships. There's an environmental impact in the face of an energy crisis. Nations might resort to environmentally damaging energy sources to meet their needs, leading to accelerated environmental degradation and climate change. So, for instance, I put in the case of Germany, where are we seeing this slide?
Sorry, sir, my devices got logged out. I'll be putting this back up.
Okay. It's trying to show for my I will just continue so we don't end up taking much of our time since it's so environmental aspect of it. If you look at it generally, for Africa, biomass and that's wood burning in rural areas is in terms of significant in the pollution, as well as flaring. I mean, if proper arrangements and proper policies are not put in place to be able to harness the use of natural gas, associated gas is being fled. So this is also going to impact on the environment because of energy poverty will result to using the available means of survival. And so because of the issues that happened in Europe, Germany at some point had to call back some of their coal plants. And this is what the energy crisis can cause. So an impact of energy crisis, generally, we started seeing because of, I talked about the Dangote refinery says it will suspend fuel sales in local currency. I mean, what does that have to do? If you look at from the supply side of things, the fact that, I mean, you cannot be able to secure crude oil for the refinery, this led to sourcing crude oil from other countries, both in Africa and from the US. And if he's doing this in hard currencies in US dollars, there's no way he's going to be able to do part of it and selling in to major marketers in terms of Naira after the NNPC suspended so-called the domestic receipt agreement. So more than 600 million Africans cannot access electricity and they lack reliable energy. This hurts our socio-economic and development in the region, according to Dialogue 8. And the subsidies for fossil fuels has hit a high record of 118 billion. That's about 7.5 billion US dollars in South Africa in terms of the international energy, 2020 to do for sustainable development. So energy crisis can lead to higher energy prices, which can increase the cost of production and reduce consumer spending. This can slow down economic growth, increase inflation, and cause unemployment. So go down. I've passed this slide. Just yes, we are here. Okay. No, not this. The next one. Yes. So I just read that energy crisis can lead to higher energy prices, which can increase the cost of production, reduce consumer spending, and this can slow down economic growth and increase inflation and cause unemployment. Let's go to the next slide. I think I've taken so much time. So potential solutions in terms of energy crisis, the need for investment into infrastructures, robust gas and power networks, national grid networks. If you look at for particularly in Nigeria, to be able to sustain and meet up with gas supply obligations within the domestic requirements, Nigeria as a whole need to be able to have a robust gas pipeline network, like in developed nations, to be able to reach out to the various regions. This will help in terms of meeting up the regional demands. Energy efficiency in terms of energy use. This energy efficiency was fully promoted during the 2022 crisis, particularly in Europe when Russian gas was cut off. Places like UK, people had to resort into using efficient energy saving bulbs as well as cut-offs. When you're leaving the house, in terms of you're not using, you need to cut down the use of consumption of electricity. Renewable energy is the energy crisis currently creates a better concentration and pathway for people to be on government to be able to focus on the development of renewable resources and also innovating energy storage transmission, advancing nuclear energy. Small-scale nuclear is a valuable option because nuclear is a very much base load strong power generating facility. So if it, in terms of nuclear waste becomes a constraint for governments to be able to get involved with the use of nuclear and also the nuclear proliferation agreements within the US, Russia, and Iran, and all of that for world powers. So giving access to nuclear technology to some developing countries becomes a constraint. So ensure a diversified, sustainable energy portfolio, government direct assistance or by limiting prices for consumption. Subsidies, though up to every country, even in Europe, there were subsidies. So it's not like government at no point will say they don't have subsidies. It's at some point, there are subsidies that have been happening in terms of now the government of Nigeria is doing the so-called there's a support for the metering system whereby sales of metering. So the government has invested a lot of money in terms of kind of subsidy for this supposed to be able to assist in terms of distributing and making sure that the metering, the national grid, and also the people who have use of electricity in Nigeria have access to a metered system. Let's go to the next slide. So I've said a lot about this. I might not take too much time again. It's so much for me I've taken. So if you look at in Nigerian scenario, we've seen one of the significance is the power shortages and the grid blackouts. So what can we do in terms of consider other modes of transportation? The user we are having CNG being promoted by the federal government of Nigeria, invest in fuel storage facilities to store petroleum times of scarcity, also reforming the financing system for decarbonization projects. There should be, in terms of policy, clear pricing mechanism of petroleum products. This is very important. And functional refineries implement strategic petroleum reserve if the government can do that. Invest in gas infrastructure and onboarding the national grid, adopting renewable energy sources like solar, biomass, and hydro. So these are kind of solutions that can be able to help in terms of the energy crisis for Nigeria and other African nations. Let's go further, please. So I think I'm concluding. So in summary, energy crisis have the potential to significantly affect the global economy. The several reasons may lead to their occurrence in the future. So although practical and precise forecasting is challenging, it's crucial that organizations, people, and governments are ready for probable interruptions in energy supply networks. It's not going to stop. How system is being managed, geopolitical tensions, infrastructural issues, um, um, government policies, the energy transition, renewables, price, and all of this will continue to cause one or two forms of energy crisis in the future. We hope that policies within the system of our government will be able to bring out possible, implement the solutions that are put forward to be able to have energy supplies and energy system that will meet global demand and will help foster economic growth, alleviate poverty, and grant energy access, particularly in Africa and Nigeria. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much, Mr. Etsudan, for your discourse. We appreciate your shared knowledge into today's topic. We have another mentor on the call who would be giving the floor to for his presentation in the person of Mr. Ayobami. Thank you so much, sir, for joining in. We're happy to have you in today's session. Mr. Ayobami, are you with us?
Yes, I hope you can hear me.
Yes, sir, we can hear you, sir.
Okay, sorry, I'm in a bit of a transit and I'm transiting from a place to another. So I hope the network would be cooperative enough for us to hear each other. Yeah. Please, I believe you have my slide.
Yes, I'm working on it to bring it up.
Okay. Yes. Engineer Tulam has spoken. So well, and I would love the mentees on call to especially pay attention to especially its conclusions and on practical steps and solutions towards it. And even though it broke my heart a bit when he was talking about biomass and firewood, because I love firewood, jollof rice, and smoked good bush meat. So I hope we won't have to cancel firewood off circulation anytime soon. So I can still enjoy these meals. Yes. Uh, so yeah, we're having a critical discussion today, and okay, I think Engineer Islam's audio is still on.
Oh, sorry. Sorry.
Yes, thank you, thank you. Yes, so we're having the important discuss this weekend. It's important because I see it more of like a social, political discussion that everyone should have, and that also means that uh, it's something that you or I already have an opinion about, and that's what is happening around us energy wise, the issues you're facing in your house, so with power bills and um high cost of fuel and diesel and a whole lot, of amounts needed to have an alternative power source and everything. So these are things we live around us. So everybody by now should have an opinion or two about what kind of crisis we have in the energy sector. Yes. Uh, okay, still waiting for my slide, or should I try to bring it up?
Okay, I'll soon put it up. It's just a sharing issue from my
Okay,
end.
okay, that's fine. Yes. Okay, so let me just let me go through it. So why I guess Dennis would join us shortly on that. Yes. Sorry, I'm just trying to check my where I have copies of it. Okay. Yeah, I think I've seen it. So yes, this week, like you said, the title is energy crisis and impact and possible solutions. So yes, it's just 4 or 5 slides I have. So critical. So we can just run it through and save a lot of time. Yes. So next slide, please. That'll be the third slide. Yes. So this is just the agenda for the day. Then the third slide, please. The next slide, please. So yes, so like I said, energy is a frequent discussed topic around the world. From gas shortage in Europe to the Russian-Ukraine war that has affected a lot of the gas pipelines and everything, and um, I mean made it a cold winter a couple of years ago, and countries like Germany had to resort to coal, for example, and I mean reopen their coal mines with their shuts down because of that. And that's how important it is for have energy in a particular environment, because energy drives everything from vehicles to industries, everything to economies. Like now Nigeria is fully reliant on fossil fuel, for example, which is also energy. Yes. So, and we also know about much talk about renewables and non-renewables we had in the last few weeks, and the effects on climate, among other things. So, energy crisis also involves climate one way or the other. Also, yes. The power supply in Nigeria, of course. I mean, well, most at least people have experienced various discos and gencos, and the fact remains that except if you are staying in extent in Nigeria that's fully providing its own power, most likely you'll never see 100% power in anywhere. I mean, I stand to be corrected, but I mean, in my house in Lagos, I think I still do have 20 to 24 hours, maybe 23 to 24, maybe 1 hour or so less every day, at least on most days. Yeah. So, but 100% non-blinking light is still a work in progress in Nigeria, basically. Yes. Of course, we also have the oil and gas sector having a lot of issues, down to how many barrels are being declared by the oil complaints, oil bunkering, pipeline destruction. We know what happened in River State recently. Yes. Now we have Dangote refineries, but we still need more refineries to come into circulation. So the good news is that Boa and a lot of modular refineries are coming up. So I mean, then that means we have a way whereby economies of scales will come into place, and demand and supplies will be playing, and we'll have most likely lesser energy costs or prices. Yes, so it's still a work in progress. I mean, so of course, I mean, I know when there's four scarcity, which I've not had in a while, thanks to I guess Dangote from refinery. Yeah, it's always a long queue at filling stations. Of course, so we're talking about gas flaring for a couple of weeks also. Yeah, I mean, gas flaring is still a burning issue in Niger Delta, and I mean, and we'll discuss a bit more in the following slides. Yes. So on renewables, yes, we are catching up fast, but I would say that it's more of private and personal renewable efforts, in the sense that we are private individuals, and us, me and you, are the ones trying to build something. I mean, in our houses and everything, to make it worthwhile, and having power in our house, basically. Yes. So sorry, with my son. Yeah. So yeah. So this is how Nigeria is still trying to catch up when it comes to renewable with the world. But I mean, and honestly, it's more difficult for us because we are still importing this technology most of the time. I mean, we still import a lot of things. Yes, Papa. So we still import a lot of things, and of course, it's more expensive for us, and of course, and that's like the like in which we used to import a lot of refined products into Nigeria, and which is getting better. So hopefully, Nigeria in the next few years can catch up with the world, and in our renewable energy journey. Yes. Next slide, please. So on our next slide, I think we'll go through looking at the crisis based on each sectors, and each and some particular parameters we have. Economically, yes, Nigeria is fully reliant on fossil fuel, which cannot be overemphasized. Yes, we needed to draw that. I mean, our budget is pegged pegged on the prices of oil and gas in international markets. So that's how critical it is for to gain foreign revenue effects, for to drive our economics, and to even drive our budgets. Our policies in the country. So yes, oil and gas account for a large percentage of our earnings and our effects and our GDP, and so it's so key to Nigeria. Yes, uh, but I don't know. Question now to ask yourself is it supposed to be, are we supposed to over rely on a particular sector, or we should need to diversify? Yes, I mean, most economists, most people will tell you that yes, Nigeria should be a multi sectoral economy, not and not on just oil and gas. And now most likely you see a lot of revenues being made from taxation now, in forms of import duties, levies, and other things. But Nigeria should also try to build more sectors. Technology is a good viable option. The agrarian society agriculture is also a good thing that Nigeria may want to look at in nearest and possible very soon future. Yes, our regulations, of course, are the PIA being introduced in 2001, Petroleum Industry Act, and we have the Nigeria Energy Transition Plan, which is supposed to be a working policy for Nigerians. Then we have the NUPLC and Nigeria midstream and downstream regulations, licensing permits and approvals. Yes, for anything we want to do in whether upstream, downstream, midstream, we need a permit and approval from these agencies, and it's been a way of also making revenue. I mean, you can be paying. I remember was the time I was handling licenses over 120 licenses and permits from various various oil and gas agencies and yes, and basically, some 6 months, some 1 year, some per each activity. So yes, it's a good way to regulate the system, make sure that they're doing well, but it shouldn't be more of a making money. It should be of adding value to the industry and building an industrial growth in that sector. Yes, of course, we also have local content regulations in oil and gas. Yes, trying to encourage Nigerian ownership of things, Nigerians being employed instead of bringing in experts from outside the country to do things that Nigerians they can do themselves. Yes, so you have the NCDMB Act. who, Um, for example, now the Act says that any fabrication you want to do in the country should be 100% Nigerian, meaning that we can fabricate things in Nigeria, so you don't need to start looking for a fabricating agency in the UK or Russia or any other country. Yes, so that's what the Local Content Act tries. Of course, you have a similar thing with in the Massa and Cabotage Act 2003, which tries to encourage also Nigerians owning ships that works offshore, owning manning ships. That means Nigerians should be the one on the ship. I mean, the captain, the engineers, and also building of ships in Nigeria, which is still which that capacity still needs to be encouraged in the sense that we had Niger Dock being owned by the federal government, was privatized, and now they are still doing one or two things there. Yes, it's coming up, but we need more dry docking entities that can do. I mean, dry dock, not just a small security, but we need something that can build a world class 150-man offshore supply vessel or offshore pipeline laying vessels. That kind of capacity we still have to develop, because most of the time Nigerians still go to Norway, Singapore, China to build vessels and bring it into the country when we have a lot of waterways and a lot of we can always build floating dry dock systems and for good good industrial standards, international standards vessels. Yes, so our issues, yes, oil and gas over dependency of crude oil, yes, that goes without being reiterated. I mean, of course, we're still more of a fossil fuel, non-renewable, and in the nearest future, we still know how to marry the non-fossil and the fossil and the renewable and non-renewable together, and see how we can balance it off over the next decades or centuries maybe. And then, of course, we always have host community. Boaha is better now. I mean, compared to where we had Obasanjo and Jonathan and everything. Yeah, so it's much better now, but it's still there. And of course, I'm still of the opinion that NNPC is still yet to understand that they are they are now a limited liability company, and they just want to start acting like they're a government agency and limited liability company and everything. So, I mean, these are things that we need to understand that NNPC is now a company that should run like a company, not like a government agency. And you see a lot of that in places like in that Dangote NNPC Boaha, trying to fix prices, trying to tell who do you NNPC Dangote should sell this price at this thing, or trying to fix some policies here. Don't import this. Don't no, oh, no, no, no. Yes, maybe if the federal government was doing that, it's okay. Trying for to avoid price fixing, bohaha, and everything. Yes, or trust issues or anti-competition. Yes, okay, but not a company that's supposed to be like and then like a Chevron or like a Mobil, which is supposed to be. I mean, so we still have even it's being run like it's a government agency, not an NNPC, not a limited liability company that it should be. Yes, now, of course. Last year there were some licenses given out for commercialization of gas flaring, but I've not seen much. Even licenses were issued. I mean, I had a couple of clients that issued licenses, but not much has been done towards making that a reality. So I would also think it's still a work in progress. But of course, we need to start making uh, good out of that gas. Even if it's just for power generation. I mean, that will make it better than just flaring it into the atmosphere for little or nothing. Yeah. So environmental sustainability and government is still very important. The impacts of all this on our climate, on our environment, on our lands, on our fish ponds, on our lakes and lagoons and everything, on environmental spillage and pollution and everything. These are things that still much around, and why the government needs to tighten up the sensitization of it and also the sanction part of it, and also start holding people responsible for this. And I think that's when we start seeing more improvement in that sector. Yes, of course, Dangote is always from time to time saying that he needs crude, and people are refusing to sell crude to him. He needs to import crude in dollars, and of course that's also impact on his prices and everything. So um, it won't be good that we finally have a refinery working in Nigeria and we can't even get crude being supplied, and after importing the foreign crude into Nigeria. And you see how, if you do the economics mathematics, that definitely that will result in more expensive um, crude, petrol and diesel and the likes of refined products. Yes, of course, subsidies has always been a whole lot of discussion. I mean, some people still say Nigeria government is still paying subsidies. Some people say subsidies is scam. I mean, whatever discourse you believe or in which you belong to, subsidy has always been a burning matter and a crisis in how do we actually ensure that if government is truly paying for subsidy, we are actually paying for what is consumed in the country and not something that is paid for and is being shipped to Benin or Niger or to Cameroon. So that is still, I mean, it's a burning issue, not as much as it was a year ago, but I mean, it's still something that we still need to discuss in social realm. Yeah. Next slide, please. So yes, in power, yes, there's still reliance, yes, on fossil, yes, hydro still cause, I mean, forms a part of a part of reliance on for making power also. But the real focus will be the use of gas, actually. Like I said, which we can convert the gas that's being fled into production of power in Nigeria, which will be a very good thing. Yes, yes, and Electricity Act 2023, yes, a good regulation. Nigeria Energy Transition Plan also mentions power transiting from non-renewable to renewable power is still much talked about. Yes, issues there's issues with transmission. The discos through their organization, they have a group. They have said that they can provide as much as 30,000 megawatts, and but they are saying that transmission leg is a problem because transmission leg cannot receive that much power. So that means technically they are producing more than our transition um, um, can receive and give to the discos to distribute to you and I in Nigeria, basically. So transition leg is still something that we need to revamp, make it a higher capacity to receive from the Gencos, and hopefully Gencos are saying the truth that they can actually give us more power than they're actually currently generating. Yes, transmission company of Nigeria has always been the sole person, which is still the sole person in charge of transmission, but the Electricity Act tries to open up that area and allows transmission company of Nigeria to bring in private individuals to help in transmission. So hopefully in the next few years you might see more being done in the transition, like towards making us add more power home basically, and of course power to run our industries and infrastructures. Yes, discos are claiming part of the discos claims are still that the result of the result of the result of that not able to transmit more power to transmission company of Nigeria, they are actually making a loss, and the investments in the sector is not yielding interest, and that's one of the reasons why we have the band A and the so-called exorbitant, so-called because based on depending on where you stand, some people say oh it's a reasonable cost for 100% power. Some people will tell you that oh no, it's still high based on the economic factors at play currently. So yes, so discos are claiming that to be running at a loss because they can make their monies from power being transmitted to them. Yes, basically. And Gencos also are also complaining also. Yes. Electricity Act prices and subsidies, of course. Um, there have been discussions that federal governments subsidize power for us, for citizens, and there's been called for a let's remove it, let's make it like the petrol and diesel we have without no subsidies and everything. So it's an ongoing concern, and if it's finally removed, that means we might have its prices much more expensive than we have band A, and to go across all bands, maybe B or C or D, depending on the one you belong to. So subsidy is supposed to still be in play in, in the economy of in Nigeria, basically. Yes. Then Gencos also it would be good if Gencos can do more research and development. I mean, let's check what we have around. Let's manufacture let's see if it's gas turbine or wind turbine. Let's play around with what we have around if possible. I mean, that way the overhead cost of equipment and facilities might just reduce. And of course, we can also start exporting to other countries. So to be good for Gencos to play around more research and development and to set aside funds from their budget to do that. Yes, of course, financial investment is always a burning issue in Nigeria, and how readily are companies able to get investment and financing for their projects, without you knowing someone that knows someone, how can a bright young man that um, has researched something and can develop an equipment that can produce power, for example, how does he walk into a bank and they will already listen to him, listen to his idea, and say, oh, we would fund you without having a exorbitant interest rate or so. I mean, and this goes down to life examples I've seen of an of a man that had an equipment that and approached the bank, and the bank was asking for over 70% of a stake in the company, and the man said no. The man went to Japan with his idea. So that's how young Nigerian entrepreneurs are being chased out of the country basically because they don't have backings when it comes to financing and investments basically. Yes, and because most of the time they don't have a collateral to even put in place in the first place. So government should find a mechanism whereby people that have bright ideas on how to help the energy space are being financed and government invest in them. Was it 2 weeks ago I had a meeting with, or 3 weeks ago I had a meeting with in Oxfordshire with an energy company, and energy company had $50 million investment from the UK government and $50 million investment from the US government. So that's how governments are seen to encourage people that have bright ideas towards renewable revolution in the energy space. So that's what energy the government can also do to help improve those that have good innovations and inventions in the energy space. Yes. So yes, gas to power initiatives is still down to commercialization of food as I spoke. Yes, about earlier, and we should see how we can use our gas to make more power and. Hopefully that Nigeria can key into that, like is the plan right now to do. So let's hope that the more practical steps towards that. Next slide, please. Okay, so I think I'm winding up now. So yes, on the renewables, like I said, Nigeria Energy Transition Plan is ongoing towards introducing more of renewables into the economy and more of hopefully more of significant investment opportunities also. Of course, we already have a growing solar industry, but we still need to see more of hydrogen, electric vehicles, and things like that in to be in that. So yes, so it's still, like I said, it's still at the developmental stage, but hopefully Nigeria will catch up. I mean, in the next decade or so, hopefully towards that. Yes. So fingers crossed at that. Yes, and regulations we have the Climate Change Act, and of course Nigerian Energy Transition Plan, which also points towards this. Yes, the issues we have, as usual, research and development is not insufficient. Importation of technology is still what we still do mostly. Reliance on fossil fuel, of course, Nigeria is, like we said, it's just so much reliant on fossil fuel. Yeah, of course. Also, the practicability of the application of the Climate Change Act and the Nigerian Transitional Plan in action also is something that, I mean, is left for us to have an act, and also left for us to have an implementation of the act, which is something that Nigeria has to do to have an edge when it comes to uh, talks about renewables and also climate change. Yes, of course, the funding of this also is much. We don't see them so much in our budget. I mean, budget is always I mean, always having a lot of other focus than climate change or renewables. So hopefully, I mean, we'll see more of that in successive governments, and maybe we can, or this government can also, I mean, hopefully in following years, I mean, look at that and improve the budgets in Nigeria on that, especially since most like US now is cutting funds when it comes to climate, to aid to African countries and rest of the world also. So I mean, so we will see more, we will see less money is being thrown towards things like this. And of course, the question I ask is that the limited money that is being thrown, we're now having less than what we used to have before. So how do we, I mean, turn the tide around? That's a question we should ask ourselves and our government and our National Assembly members and those that are representing us in our constituencies. Yes. Yes, investment is, I mean, we've spoken about the investment already, so we can move to this next slide, please. Yes, so our conclusion slide says, talks about, so it's good for Nigeria to, I mean, set targets and action documents. I mean, we have some laws, we have some policies. Of course, we can let's improve on them, but we just need more pragmatic steps towards achieving what we're setting targets we have and action documents we have in our laws and policies, basically. Yes, for governments to overcome this crisis, I mean, it's required that energy we need to meet. I mean, we need to keep a good eye on how we will balance the renewables and non-renewables because of the effect it has on our environment, basically. So it's something that we should know that in the long run we have to do when we are balancing this and looking at our environment and the need for us to keep our planet safe and habitable for us and our descendants to come, basically. Yes. Of course, the government should create a right policies framework, put people that know what they are doing in it, not just politicians, but technocrats that know what they're doing, can run through it practically, and that's quite important. And of course, adherence to is so important. More ease in doing business. I mean, in when it comes to renewables and when it comes to energy, basically as a whole, there are too much of licenses, too much of permits. I mean, sometimes you see two or three government agencies having similar permits of the same thing. So this doesn't encourage the ease of doing business. I mean, some permits are just too expensive. I mean, so these are things that, I mean, at the time that some permits from the old DPR that was fused together, now we're now separated into different bits and charging the same amount for each of them. So why government needs to raise revenue, you also need to know that we need to build that sector, build, encourage investments, and when the overhead cost for compliance is too high, then it stiffens the need to want to go into investment in the first place. Yes, so of course there are also corruption, favoritism in the energy sector, and of course government also needs to have stable policies, not that today wake up one morning and say it's a policy, next morning commands, that policy, then it doesn't encourage foreign investments because you'll see the country has been unstable when it comes to policies being released every 3 market days, for example. So we hope this can help us improve Nigeria and, of course, reduce the energy crisis we have around. So thank you so much. Yeah, bye.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Ayoban, for that very, very insightful presentation. Thank you so much for all the knowledge you shared with us during that phase or that segment. So we'll be taking presentations from the mentees now. We'll be taking, I think we only have one group presenting in class today. So please, group one, if your group presenter is ready, please, we're ready for you. Kindly do what to share your screen and start your presentation. Group one presenter, please, we are waiting for you. Can you kindly share your slides? Okay.
Hi, good morning. Please, can anyone confirm if I'm being audible?
Yeah, we can hear you. Can hear you.
Okay. So, good morning, good afternoon rather to our mentors, ladies and gentlemen on the call. My name is Abdulaziz Karamat Okoyemi, and I will be presenting for my group on the topic energy crisis, impact, and the possible solution. So first of all, the first thing on our mind is what is energy crisis? I mean, I don't think that's the first thing on our mind presently, considering the fact that our mentors have done a very good job explaining it, but I'm just going to go with the flow of my presentation. Now, basically, energy crisis is a significant bottleneck in the supply of energy resources to an economy. We can basically say it is the imbalance or the gap in demand and supply of energy, leading to increase in prices and shortage in energy. Then we could also see it as the fact that energy crisis stems from the foreseeable end of the cycle of oil, gas, and coal. Judging by the statistics released by International Energy Agency, their projection is that global energy demand is expected to rise by 25% by 2040. What does this do? It puts immense pressure on existing energy infrastructure, leading to a global challenge, which is energy crisis. Now, you might be wondering at what point in history did energy crisis occur? Now, from the presentation that our mentors have given us, I'm very sure we've understood that, but on our presentation, we gave certain case studies, which is the first one, the 1973 oil crisis. Some of the crises were not listed here, but I have it on the research I have personally done. We have the 1979 oil crisis. We have the 1990 oil price shock. We also have the 2021-2022 global energy crisis. And I'm just going to give a little insight on some of this crisis so that we can basically understand the concept of energy crisis. Due to the embargoes that was placed by the Arab OPEC countries, they drastically reduced oil supply to the Western nations. And because Europe was heavily reliant on oil products, they had and they also faced severe economic crisis. During this period, there was increase in domestic fossil fuel production, and it was really a crisis that underscored the vulnerability of the fossil fuel dependent economy. That was for the 1973 oil crisis. Now, for the 1979 oil crisis, following the Iranian Revolution and the political tension in the Middle East, it triggered energy crisis. And this was because Iran reduced its oil production from about 6 million barrels per day to 1.5 million barrels per day. Now, this drastic drop in production, coupled with political instability, significantly altered the global supply of crude oil. Another of the example I mentioned was the 1990 oil price shock. The Persian Gulf War in 1990 led to the significant oil price shock, and the geopolitical instability disrupted all oil supply demand. Then for the 2021-2022 global energy crisis I previously mentioned, for this, we can basically say that two factors led to this crisis. First, the COVID-19 pandemic and the aftermath of the COVID-19 pandemic, coupled with the Russian invasion of Ukraine. Now, during the COVID-19 pandemic, there was a decline in demand for oil products or demand for energy products. And so, coupled with the recovery of the economy afterward, that is afterwards, after the COVID-19 pandemic, we're trying to recover major economics of the world, we're trying to recover their economy. And so this demand grew disproportionately with the supply. And there we have energy crisis. Then I mentioned the invasion of Russia, invasion of Ukraine by Russia. This also intensified this energy crisis. Basically, now I'm just going to move to the causes of energy crisis. Why this is not present in our slides, we had previously made and compiled most of our research on it, but it didn't make it to the final slide. So I'm just going to explain that briefly. The causes of energy crisis, basically the topic here is to highlight the impact and also provide possible solutions. But we cannot provide possible solutions if we do not acknowledge some of the causes to energy crisis. So one of the causes of energy crisis is overconsumption. We also have overpopulation. We have aging infrastructure, we have energy waste, and we have geopolitical conflict. For geopolitical conflict, that one I don't think is any it's news to us any longer, because I have repeatedly stated that most of the time that wars occurred, there was an immediate trigger to a disruption to supply chains, especially when this was occurred in like major energy producing, oil producing regions like the Middle East. So that is also one of the cause of energy crisis. Another cause is overpopulation. Overpopulation is like the primary cause of energy crisis. Once there's an increasing population, the demand for energy products increases, and the industrial sector or the oil sector would continue to expand in order to meet this demand. And we can say that overpopulation is one of the primary causes of energy crisis. Now, for overconsumption, I'll be speaking to this with Nigeria as a case study. Basically, overpopulation relates to countries that are oil dependent or that are fossil fuel dependent, like Nigeria, and or not even only oil, but non-renewable energy such as oil, gas, coal, and uranium. With the current rate of our consumption, for instance, in Nigeria, you'll be surprised. I don't think it's even a surprise any longer, but the first thing to run out will be fossil fuel. And based on the projections or the rumor, because basically most of us here would have heard rumors that, okay, oil is going to finish in 20 years, in 30 years. What then happened at the depletion of fossil fuel or at the depletion of oil or gas or anything? We are going to have a very intense energy crisis. I pray it doesn't come to that, but with the rate at which we are consuming our non-renewable energy sources, it might one day get to that. So these are the causes of energy crisis. Then we'll go to the impact of energy crisis. Now, for the impact, we strategized it this way, that of course energy crisis has a wide-ranging effect on economies, on societies, on wildlife, on environment, the ecology, every single bit. And so we decided to view the impact of energy crisis from three perspectives, which is the economic impact, the social impact, and the environmental impact. For the economic impact, we've basically said that at every occurrence of energy crisis, there have been an increase in oil price and also leading to inflation. You might be wondering what's the relationship between, sorry, a moment, please. Okay, I don't think that made it to the slide also, but I'll just keep speaking. You might be wondering what's the relationship between energy prices and inflation, but we need to understand that relationship because it is crucial in understanding broader economic trends. Now, the relationship between energy prices and inflation is simply the fact that energy costs impact production and consumer prices, leading to inflation. Now, from the examples I've given, that is the 1970 oil crisis, that's the 1973 and the 1979 oil crisis, you would see that at the occurrence of this oil energy crisis, the first thing that rose up was energy prices, and it caused a widespread of inflation, increasing the standard of living, making it impossible for people to even maybe save because everything was going into spending. Now, basically, we can just narrow it down to one word, that the relationship between energy price and inflation is the fact that inflation rises with the price of oil. So having explained that, I will just go to the economic impact, which is basically like the same thing I've said. There is inflation. Countries that have had or experienced energy crisis have had inflation at the very peak of the impact. Another thing that follows suit is increase in production. When there is energy crisis, let's say from the demand for energy products is outrageously high, these oil industries or industrial sectors try as much as possible to expand production. And that is also one of the impacts that energy crisis can have on the economy of a country. Then we'll move to the social impact. For the social impact, we highlighted 3 points. That is increase in poverty and inequality. We have social unrest and conflict, and we also have the impact on education and healthcare. Now, for social unrest, we would see that let me just use Nigeria as an example, for instance. At any point where fuel is scarce, maybe in like filling stations or places where we could get fuel, there is either this aggression or this unrest between the buyers and the sellers. And that is like one of the things that we can see is the effect of energy crisis on the society. There is always social unrest, especially when these energy products are scarce and there is not enough to meet the demand of the people. Another impact is on education and on healthcare. Now, I think majorly I've been speaking on energy crisis from the part of fossil fuel, and I've kind of neglected speaking on power and on other renewables. So I'm just going to jumble both under this impact. Now, for impact on education and healthcare, this energy crisis can also impact education because, like we said, as energy crisis happen, there's increase in prices. Schools are struggling to increase energy costs, impacting their finances, their operation. In fact, schools will I say learning communities or learning centers in communities that are disadvantaged, that is not doing too well, are actually at a disadvantage here because they are struggling with energy costs, and the impact is also on their finances and their operation. For healthcare too, a lack of security on the part of power. It hinders the functioning of medical equipment, refrigeration of vaccines, proper sanitation, and all of that. Then we'll move to the third point, which is increase in poverty and inequality. Now, will I say in the world, we have like 3 classes of persons or income earners: the low income earner, the middle class, and the high class. But in Nigeria here, I will basically categorize this into 2. But then the focus is on the low class, that is the low income earners. With inflation on a rampage, or with inflation at the peak, most of the money that they earn goes into like buying products, and this just makes them more I don't want to use the word more poor, but that's basically the situation, because they're spending more and they are not even earning at the same percentage or at the same rates that they are spending. So this increases poverty and also inequality. Then the next part is the environmental impact. I'm trying to find this slide. A moment, please. Yes, for environmental impacts, we'll look at it from 3 points. Basically, we have environmental degradation. You can see this in the noise and water pollution. Now, with increased reliance on fossil fuel, it contributes to water and also noise pollution. basically, let's just look at it from the noise pollution aspect. Every aspect of offshore oil drilling, especially when the industrial sector of an economy decides to expand its production, is, let's take for instance whale. It's harmful to whales. They are blasting, the ship sound, the gun sound, everything. It's effective, or will I say it impacts them also. So that is also another way that energy crisis impacts the environment, that is noise pollution. We also have water pollution. Thousands of oil leaks pollute the Gulf each year. This oil causes pneumonia, immune dysfunction, reproductive issues, and all of that. Then we go to global warming. The concept of global warming is not new to any one of us, and that is particularly the end result, especially for a nation that is trying to expand production for energy in order to meet the rising high demand for energy products. Now, when industries increase their production, it results in the emission of gases like the CO2, which in excess can harm the surrounding environment and also the ozone layer. In the last few years, we've read on the news and also heard in the TVs that global warming has taken the world by the storm. Many countries are constantly and even presently witnessing extreme weather conditions like never before. So this is also one of the effects of energy crisis on the environment, global warming. We also have the ecosystem disruption. We also have damage to energy sources due to this expanding energy production. There's an example of Germany. I think when they had an issue, that is this energy crisis, they tried as much as possible to go through another alternative, that is use is it charcoal or something. I'm not really sure of the fact, but I read something about that. So they tried to find another alternative, and the burning of these plants led to the release of carbon emission into the air. Having stated the meaning of energy crisis, giving examples of its occurrences and also stated its cause and its impact, we'll now move to the possible solutions to energy crisis. That also did not make it to the slides, but I will just speak on that. So for the possible solutions to energy crisis, personally, I would recommend like a multifaceted approach, and that would mean investing in renewable energy. It would also mean diversifying the economy. This is for countries or economies of the world that are heavily dependent on fossil fuel. Then modernization of energy infrastructure. I have mentioned that aging infrastructure is one of the causes of energy crisis. That is that when there is like a huge demand and the process of producing, in the process of trying to supply, you have to produce. But then in producing, you're making use of outdated and aging infrastructures. This would in no way lead to an efficient supply or a correct percentage that would meet or balance the raging amount of demands that you have. So we need like a modernization of energy infrastructures. Aging and outdated infrastructures contribute to energy losses. And so the government should prioritize infrastructure investment to build resilience and energy networks capable of supporting growing energy demands and integrating renewable energy effectively. There would also be another possible solution is implementation of strong energy policies and regulations. Yes, effective policies and regulatory frameworks are essential for addressing the energy crisis. The government is advised to implement strict energy conservation laws, enforce emission reduction targets, and promote sustainable energy carbon practices. Basically, I would just conclude by saying that energy crisis is not just a one nation challenge, it is a global challenge with profound implications, not just implications that would just impact one nation, but also a global impact because we have global warming and By adopting this collaborative and multifaceted approach that I've mentioned, I think we can manage the crisis, because it's not something that we can completely mitigate against. We can just manage the crisis, then build a resilient energy future. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much for that very wonderful presentation. Karimat, if I'm not mistaken, I think your presentation was very clear and concise and also straight to the point. So well done to you and to your team for putting it together. Seeing that we only had one group that was able to make submission, I think group 2 had a little issue with their final submission, so they were not able to submit. We'll be taking feedback from the mentors on group 1's presentation. I think Mr. Okeogene was in transit, so he wasn't able to give his presentation, but would like for him to start with feedback to the presentations that were made, and maybe any points he would like to highlight as we continue with the discourse. Mr. Okeogene, are you with us, sir?
All right, thank you, everyone. I've just jumped into an office. I need to have a conversation, so give me a few moments. Let the other mentors take their presentation, their feedback, and then I'll come up if I can.
All right.
Apologies.
All right. Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
All right. So please, can we have Mr. Etulam? Sir, we would like to have feedbacks from you on the presentation.
Sorry, 1 minute. I stepped up. Okay, back again. Well, from my observation, it's a good presentation in terms of understanding the concept, and as well as able to own and make the presentation on the concept of the topic. I like the fact that we're able to give instances in terms of the impacts, kind of similar to what I was saying. But in terms of the layouts, I'm not too impressed, because I was just sitting afar back, just looking at the screen of my computer, trying to analyze if I can actually grasp the slide that's been shown in just at a go. And I find it very difficult to just articulate the information, because I just have a lot of words all through and small, and I'm saying it, but it doesn't give that touch of a presentation that we're looking for the slides itself. So they need to work on how to present on their slides. Topic itself, both known by the presenter, but in terms of layouts, the presentation slides, the background color and that's white and all that. So it's not coming out, and I cannot be able to tell immediately, but you're just looking at just one of the slides. If I say, okay, social impact, if I look at this creator, I'm not able to articulate at a glance what presenter is putting out. So actually what she's saying, I'll have to attentively be reading. Then I can be able to understand the presentation. So this is very important. The presentations are something bullet point and concise. If you have all this, they should be clear. And at a glance, message should be passed out. If you see how the leaders can also do that. I also, me and I myself, will be able to see that. Present one particular page, you'll be able to get the concept very fast. And whilst we are explaining, this is very important. And I appreciate efforts being done. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much, Mr. Esulam, for your feedback. Please, Mr. Ayobami, are you with us? Please, we would like to get feedback from you on the presentation made today by Group 1.
Yes. So I'm sorry, I didn't really pay full attention, but what I could get out from it is I like the fact that she concentrated a bit more on the price impact of the crisis. I mean, I thought that was pretty good. I mean, it brought to life how energy, impacts costs, vis-a-vis how the economy is. That's why sometimes when I see an analysis saying that, oh, prices of food in the UK is higher, and I ask myself, what is the living standard of people there? So they should weigh youth, and most economists will tell you that they will look at the minimum wage to see how they can um, just oppose the prices of energy with the cost of living in a particular country. So it's not it's different to say, oh yeah, this country is cheap, yeah, it's high, but how the people have been able to cope with that so-called pricing of that particular energy product. Yeah, so I love that. But why she took us back to 1970s, run us through. Yeah, so I was expecting to see a if you're going to start an historical journey discuss, you have to bring us logically step by step from that time till now. So I expected to see you were taking us 1970s, 1980s, 1990s, 2000s, and up until now. So if you did that, I'm sorry I didn't see. But I also that's something I think I would have loved to see, except if I wasn't paying attention. Yeah. So that then also just to you were not too sure about a point on the German coal thingy. Yes. So what the Germans were, they had a very good coal industry to power and to provide energy, but because of the whole renewable energy, climate change, they shut that down, and we're exploring better, cleaner forms of energy. But the Russian-Ukraine crisis had to drive them back to open it because it impacted the supply of gas into Europe. Russia was making some seemingly unreasonable demands, like come and buy come and buy the cars in in their currency and things like that, and all of that. So, and of course the war also destroyed the pipelines and everything. So yeah, so they were faced with do we winter is coming, should we die of cold, or should we reopen our mine? So they had to take that survival mode of reopening the mines that was shut down previously because of their renewable energy efforts. Yes, so yes, it's a coal land. Yeah, so just to clarify that burning question you had. Yes, so in all, I mean, it's good. It could be better. It could be better with more references. I'm sorry, I'm more of a research person, so I would love to see where you got the facts from. Except if everything you got it from your head, then that's good. Yeah, but I mean, most likely, I mean, you have to research for this so you can give us your materials or your sources for it. It helps us also to make sure that your sources are up to date, and I mean that gives assurance that they are not subsequent sources. And if we see subsequent sources, we know that, oh, you didn't claim the ones you told us are up to date, so we know that we can still research further in our individual spaces on that. All in all, I mean, it's a good effort. I mean, it could be better, but it's also a good one, solid. At least it took my mind back to some things that seemingly I don't think about. So that's why I think I'll give you some good points for that effort. Yes, thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Ayobami, for your feedback. I don't know if Mr. Okeogene is back with us, but we'll be taking questions now. So please, if you have any questions, that's from the mentees. We are the last part of, our discourse for today. So please, if we have questions, can we kindly indicate by the raise of hand, or by the raise of hand, or by, you can send your questions to the chat box. But if there are questions, we'll be taking questions now. We'll be taking maybe 2 or 3 questions. So please, do we have any questions from the mentees? Okay, please, are there questions? We're taking questions. Okay. It seems we don't have any question in class today. I want to assume that based off of everything that was shared by our mentors, we fully understood, the discourse, and we were able to grasp everything that was said in class, including with the presentation. I hope, the group presenter and also group one was paying attention to everything that Mr. Ayobami and Mr. Etulam pointed out about in their feedback towards presentation. And I hope, subsequently in our next class, I will be having a class next week on Saturday. In our next class, we're able to take correction and also, make adjustments to our presentations and slides based off of the corrections. So in absence of any further question, we would like to be taking, we'll be taking pictures now. So please, if you can, please kindly turn on your videos so that we can take a quick screenshots. For the mentees that are in class, kindly turn on your videos so that we can take a quick screenshots and call it a day. Thank you, Mr. Etulam. Thank you, Andrew. Do we have more mentees? Thank you, Chioma. All right. All right, so we have more mentees on call who would like to turn on their videos. We are taking screen pictures. Okay, I can see Confidence EB. Okay, thank you. All right. Thank you, Kenneth, and thank you everyone for cooperating. Once again, it has been a wonderful time in class. I really enjoyed the session and the discourse so far. I also enjoyed the presentation from the mentees. I hope, we are listening to the discourse and we are paying attention to everything that the mentors have been saying down from week one. It has been a build-up from week one down to where we are now in week 4. The discussions about fossil fuels, petrol, the discussions about power, the roles of GENCOs, distribution companies, their government policies, and the way they affect renewable energies, the alternative sources for, what we can use in place of the non-renewables that we have been so dependent on so far. And then now we're talking about energy crisis, what's its impact on, the everyday life, and as we move on, we will just see that we are getting to a point of a climax where every piece or every topic is a build up on the other. And, the message that is being sent is that there's a work that needs to be done in the energy industry, especially and particularly in Nigeria and Africa, in ensuring that we buff up our production and also work around sustainability within the energy industry. So thank you once again for joining. Please do not forget to share what you've learned on your different social media platforms. Do well to fill in the attendance for those that were present in class. And once again, a big thank you to our mentors who always spare their time to be here with us. They take out their time to make presentations, to share with us in class. We really, really are truly grateful for everything you do for us in terms of efforts and knowledge shared in the sessions. We are really, really grateful. I want us to enjoy the rest of our day. It's the weekend. Please make sure to do something fun today. Go out, enjoy, try to make a practice out of some of the things that you are learning. Find a way to work around energy minimization, turn off your bulbs when you're going out, just things around conservation, just to make sure that, you are also in the practice, right? Put out research, go into research, do some work, right? Publish what you are learning. Let the world know that, you are actively involved in this space and you are also contributing to the body of knowledge within this environment. I wish everyone a lovely day ahead. Please do enjoy the rest of your weekend.